Good afternoon, dear students. Today we are going to start the biology NEET CBSE classes where we'll be taking classes on different topics as well as discussing certain questions or the questions related to the particular topics. Okay, so we'll start with the topic that is sexual reproduction in flowering plants. So we'll start with the introduction. So, as you have learned the chapter introduction in your 11th standard and you have continued in your 12th standard, so you know much about the structural features of flowers. So coming to the plant reproduction, the major feature which help in the reproduction is the flower. So flower are a plant's reproductive organ, typically having both male and female reproductive organs. So the male reproductive organ is the androecium and the female reproductive organ is the gynoecium. Now, here in this slide, you have been given the parts of flower. So we will be coming to the different structural features of the flower in detail in the coming slides as well. So I would like to give an introduction about the structural parts of the flower first. So here first we have the stamen, which consists of the anther and filament. Now that is the male reproductive organ, that is the androecium, and the female reproductive organ is the pistil, which consists of the stigma, style, ovary, and the ovule. And the following other parts are the pollen tube, which arises from the stigma, the petal, the sepals, the receptacles, as well as the pedicle. Now, moving to the next slide. So, now moving to the reproduction, we need two gametes as well, isn't it? So, gametes in the sense we need a male gamete as well as a female gamete. So, we just now discussed about the two reproductive organs, that is the female and male reproductive organ. Now, moving to the male reproductive organ and the male gametes. So, pollen plays a fundamental or an important role in the male reproductive organ, and pollen is a substance produced by the plant that includes the male gametes nucleus. So pollen is related to the male gametes, so it will be having the male gametes nucleus. Now the pollens cannot move from one part of the plant to another like the male gamete in humans, so they have the system in place to move pollen from anther to the stigma. So that is what we meant by the process called pollination. So pollination is a process that takes place primarily through two mechanisms, that is by wind, that is wind pollination, and insects or other animals such as birds. Okay, so this is a easy mechanism what we know, that is pollination, by which the process by which the pollen grains are transferred from one flower to another or from one flower to another in the same plant or the different plants, isn't it? Now, moving to the next slide, we have here the different parts of the plant and given the functions as well. Okay, so first part given here is the petal. So petals are often large and colored, so we know that the different colors of the flowers attract the insects or the birds to collect the nectar or to attract to like for to promote the pollination process. We need that, so petals are needed to attract the insects. Now we have the sepals, which protects the flower while in bud. Now the petiole, it supports the flower to make it easily seen by the insects and to be able to withstand the wind. So it is a support system. Here you can see in this diagram, the petiole is like supporting the flower and it will be helping the plant or the flower to attract the insects. Now, next is the nectary. We can connect this term to nectar, which produces nectar. It also attract the insects. Now, next is the stamen. So, stamen and the anther filament together will be representing the male reproductive part of the flower, and stamen consists of the anther and filament. So, anther contains the pollen sacs in which the pollen grains are formed, and the pollen contains male sex cells. Now, coming to filament, it support the anther. Now we have the female reproductive part, that is the carpel. So the female reproductive part of the flower is made up of stigma, style, and ovary. So here stigma is a sticky in the surface, in the sense the pollen grains will be getting attached or falling on this particular area. So they are sticky surface to the ovary through which the pollen tubes grow. Now style, as you can see in this diagram, so this is a stigma. So this elongation, the pollen tube will be elongated from this pollen grain which falls on the stigma, and this tube is elongated through the style and reaches the ovary. So as here the style links the stigma to the ovary through which the pollen tubes grow. Now finally we have ovary. Ovary contains the ovules which develop into seeds when fertilized. So although I've mentioned all these points in this slide, this is already we have learned during the plus one classes, and you need these basic knowledge to learn about the reproduction in flowering plants in the 12th standard as well. So we are moving to the free fertilization, that is structure and events here. So as we discussed, the male reproductive organ is the andrecium. So the andrecium is made up of the stamen, walls. That is, here you can see this is the andrecium represented by the anther. This is the filament. So the filament is a long, slender stalk, and anther is a bilobed structure, and this make up the stamen. So stamen is filament plus anther. Now the thalamus or the petal are where the filament is attached. So in the previous diagram, you could see that here uh, the anther and the filament is attached to the petal. The petal is the thalamus part is forming a base where the filament is attached to. Okay, now moving to anther. So andrecium is made up of stamen. Stamen consists of anther and filament. So now first let's move to the anther part. Typical anther has two theca. So you can see in this diagram there is two theca for this particular anther, and this theca is having lobes. So they are bilobed. So we can, in this diagram you can see that when you are like dividing this particular anther into two parts, that is first theca and second theca, the thecas are having two lobes, that is they are bilobed, and a longitudinal groove extending longitudinally separates the theca. So here you can see a longitudinal groove is extending, which is separating these two theca as well. Now, two in each theca, the microsporangia are found at the corners. So you can see at the corners, we can see that there are microsporangia, and they contains the pollen grains. So they are having the pollen sacs which consist of the pollen grains. Now the pollen grains are having the male gamete nucleus, isn't it? So two in each theca. The microsporangia are found at the corners, and they continue to grow and eventually form pollen sacs which hold the pollen grains. Isn't it what I mentioned right now? So the microsporangia will be having the pollen sac, and pollen sac will be having the pollen grains. Now, moving to the next part, it is structure of microsporangium. So here you have the anther anatomy, and you can see there are four lobes here. And let's look into the structure of microsporangium first. It is having different layers. It is globular, and it is encircled by like different layers. The first one is the epidermis. First layer is the epidermis layer. The second one is the endothelium layer. Beneath the epidermis layer, there is the endothelium layer. Then we have the middle layers. Okay, finally we have the tapetum. So tapetum will be forming the inner layers. Now coming to this diagram, you can also here see that the epidermis is forming the outer layer. Now you have the middle layers over here, and innerwards you can see the tapetum which is having the pollen sacs. So the The middle layers and the inmost layer, that is the tapetum, nourishes the developing pollen egg grains. So this is very important part to you have to learn is that. So which among the following layer or part of the microsporangium nourishes the developing microspores, or we can say the pollen grains? So the answer is middle layers and the innermost layer, that is a tapetum. So the cell's tapetum retain the thick cytoplasm, you can see here, and more than one nucleus. So they are having more number of nuclei. Now, when an anther is young, a group of tightly arranged homogeneous cells called sporogenous tissues occupy the center of each microsporangium. So, like it is not about talking about the mature part. When the anther is young, a group tightly arranged homogeneous cells, which are called as sporogenous tissues, they occupy the center of each microsporangium. Now, the another mechanism you have to learn is the microsporogenesis. So it is easy to learn what is microsporogenesis. It is the process where microspores are developed or synthesized from PMC, that is pollen mother cell. So the pollen mother cell will undergo meiosis as well as mitosis to produce finally the pollen grain, that is a mature pollen grain. So sporogenous tissue, which is found in the young anthers, go through meiosis while the anther develops to produce a microspore tetrads. So this pollen mother cell will undergo meiosis to produce the tetrads. Now each sporogenous tissue cells has the ability to develop a tetrad. Now as the anther grows, the microspores separate from one another and grow into pollen grains, making each cell a potential pollen for PMC. So now, till now, we were learning about how the sperm, sorry, the male gamete is formed in case of plants. Okay, so it is considered like it is similar to the process of like gametogenesis in another other organisms as well. And here the terms are different. Here it is microsporogenesis. Microspores are called, they will be developing into pollen grains. So here the pollen mother cells undergo meiosis 1, meiosis 2, then mitosis. They'll be forming bicellular pollen grain, then they'll be getting into mature pollen grain, finally they'll be the germinating pollen grain. Okay, now let's learn about the pollen grain structure. So the pollen grain is also called a male gametophyte. So the pollen grains are measuring up to 25 to 50 micrometers in diameter, which germinate to produce the male gametophyte. This is already we mentioned in this previous slides as well. Now, same like fossil pollens are also preserved due to presence of sporopollenin, a hard and a stable substance. So as we know that we are able to learn about the species, the history, or about the characteristic features of these gametes because of their this presence of sporopollen, which is a hard and a stable substance, and it can withstand or it can last for a long period of time. So like the fossils, the pollens are also preserved due to the sporopollen. So this is very important for your exams as well. So what is a pollen grain structure represent? So a pollen grain has a double wall, and it is the exine and intine. So exine is a tough outer layer formed of sporopollenin, and as I mentioned, the sporopollenin is one of the most durable organic material which withstands high temperature and strong acids, and also it cannot be broken down by enzymes. That is why it could be preserved due to preserve for a long period of time. So you have to remember this point. Why there could be a question that why the pollen grains can be preserved for a long period of time, similar to fossils. The answer is the presence of sporopollenin. Now coming to intine. Intine is an inner layer, thin, continuous, consisting of cellulose and pectin. Remember the constituents of intine layer is the cellulose and pectin. So a mature pollen grain contains two cells, that is the vegetative cells and the generator cells. So vegetative cell is a larger cell with an abundant food supply and a large irregular shaped nucleus. Whereas coming to generator cells, it is spindle shaped. So vegetative is larger cell and it is having abundant food supply, and it is irregularly shaped, whereas the generator cells are spindle shaped, having thick cytoplasm and nucleus which floats in the cytoplasm of the vegetative cell due to its minute size. So in this diagram, you could see the pollen grain, and it is having the vegetative nucleus, the generative nucleus, and the outer layer, what we have discussed earlier, that is a double wall, exine and the exine, the outer layer. The intine is the inner layer, and it is thickened because of the cellulose present in the intine. So the pollen is released in two cell stage in 60% of the angiosperms, while in other, mitosis takes place by generative cell to give rise to two male gametes. That is a three cell stage. We'll be explaining it in detail in the following slides coming as after this slide. So the viability of pollen grains after release depends on the temperature and humidity ranging from 30 minutes to few months. So we are till now we're discussing about the process of microsporogenesis where the microspores are generated, that is pollen grains formation. And now we are learning about the pollen grain structure, how they are able to withstand the environment and how they are able to stay long for a period of time. So it is because of the structural features they have, and the viability of pollen grains after the release depend on the temperature and humidity, which is ranging from 30 minutes to few months. So moving to next slide. So till now we have completed the male reproductive organ, the male gametophyte, that is the pollen grain. Now we are moving to the female reproductive organ. Female reproductive organ consists of the megasporangium, that is the ovule, and the embryo sac along with the pistil. Okay, so it is represented by the name gynoecium. Gynoecium stands for the flower's female reproductive system. So it is referred to as monocarpellary. This is very important for the CBSE exams as well as NEET exams. So what is monocarpellary as well as multicarpellary? So monocarpellary is if the plant is having only one pistil or carpel. Whereas if the plant is having more than one pistil or carpel, it is called the multicarpellary. Now, when there are multiple carpels, they can fuse together, in which case the pistil is referred to as syncarpus. So again, we are going to learn two different terms, that is syncarpus and apocarpus. So when the in case of multiple carpels, if they are fused together, then it is called the syncarpus. And if it is free, then it is called apocarpus. Now, moving to the pistil part. So, what does the female reproductive organs consist of? That is the stigma. Here you can see the diagram, the stigma, the style, the tube-like structure or filament-like structure, and finally the ovary. So, this together represents the pistil. Stigma, style, and ovary make up each carpel's three constituent parts. Now, stigma is where the pollen grains are received. Now, style is below the stigma. It is a long, slender portion, as I told, like a filament. And finally, the ovary is a bulged basal portion of the ovary containing the placenta, and it is situated within the ovarian cavity. So the megasporangia or ovules are located within the placenta. Now, moving to megasporangium. So megasporangium is also called the ovule. So here you can see in this diagram, they are representing the ovule, the megasporangium. And the first structural feature you have to notice is the funicle, which connects the ovule to the placenta. Now, the term hilum, it refers to the intersection of the ovule and the funicle. Now, each ovule is covered by one or two protective layers. So, you can see here they are the integuments. So, with the exception of a tiny opening, so here you can see a small opening over here. This is called a micropyle. Now, the calysa, which is located on the opposite side of the micropyle end, represents the basal part of the ovule. Now, the integuments also contain a nucellus. So here you can see the nucellus part, which is a reserve food compartment. So, food reserve storage area is the nucellus. Remember, it is also important for the competitive exams. So, in the nucellus is where the embryo sac or the female gametophyte is found. So here you can see inside the embryo sac you have the egg or the female gametophyte, which will be fusing with the pollen grains which are produced during the microsporogenesis. Now, moving to the diagram which shows both gymnosperms and angiosperm. So, in angiosperm, as we discussed, they are having a nucellus area, and this is a megasporocyte, which is a female reproductive female gametophyte, and they are having a small opening over here that is a micropyle. They're having outer two layers of outer covering, that is the integuments, the ovary wall. So here above this structure, the ovule, the ovary structure, they have the style part, that is the stigma style region of the pistil. Now coming to gymnosperms, they are having the micropyle region here, the nucellus, the megasporocyte is there, integuments are there, but they lack the ovary wall. So you have to remember this thing. In case of angiosperms, they have the ovary wall, they have the funiculus, but in case of gymnosperms, they lack the ovary wall, and they'll be having less number of integuments as well. Now now we are moving to detail into the megasporogenesis. So megasporogenesis is a process through which the megaspore mother cell transform into megaspore. So as we discussed there, the pollen mother cell were transforming to the microspore. So here the megaspore mother cell is transforming to the megaspores. That is a female gametophyte. Now, the vast, densely packed cytoplasm and prominent nucleus of the MMC are present, and four megaspores are produced after undergoing meiosis. So, similar to the Yeah, similar to microsporogenesis, here also they undergo meiosis. This is also very important. So here you can see that the megaspore mother cell undergo meiosis. Then they'll be forming a small megaspores that is haploid in nature. And remember this thing, we'll be having questions related to this as well. So this megaspore undergo survive other degenerates and then undergo mitosis. And finally, they develop into the egg cell, which will be fusing with the male gamete, that is a pollen grain, the male gamete produced from the pollen, developed from the pollen grain. So so only one megaspore is typically functional in flowering plants, with other three degenerating. So I haven't explained in detail of this particular stage because we'll be explaining it later into the in detail coming slides. So here you can see that they form a tetrad, then they formed a eight nucleate embryo sac, and out of that three were antipodals, and then two were synergids, and there is one X cell, and one more is there. There is a polar nuclei, which is a diploid cell, and finally, out of them, one will be the X cell will be will be a functional cell. So only one megaspore is typically functional in flowering plants, with other three degenerating. Now, one functional megaspore transform into a female gametophyte, and monosporic development is this type of growth development. So what is this called? This is called a monosporic development. Now, the functioning of megaspore nucleus divides during mitosis to create new nuclei that move in opposite directions. A two nucleate embryo sac is formed. So here you can see that is two side. They're moving towards two opposite poles, and they're having two nucleate embryo sacs. So this will be the a summary diagram for microsporogenesis and megasporogenesis. So this is the anther. So this is the anther here. Now anther is having the I mean like the four different uh, microspores inside them, the microspore mother cells present inside the tapetum, and they will be undergoing meiosis 1, meiosis 2 to produce the tetrads. And these microspores will be again undergoing mitosis to develop the pollen grains. So this pollen grain will be fusing with the egg cell. Now, how does the egg cell forms? As we discussed right now, through megasporogenesis. Because of this meiosis reaction, what happens is that the cells divide and forms two haploid nuclei of central cell, that is the endosperm mother cell, the haploid egg nucleus, and the two yeah. So here there is a pollen grains will be moving to, sorry. Yeah. So first is the germination of pollen, as we discussed in this microsporogenesis, and this pollen will be moving to the stigma. Yeah, stigma, and then moving down towards the style and reaches the ovule part, and there they'll be fusing with the egg nucleus and will be forming the diploid zygote finally. So what happened is that, as we discussed here, two mitotic divisions occur, resulting in the creation of four nucleate and eight nucleate follicle sacs. So we have seen here that first it was four, then it got undergone mitosis and formed a eight nucleate embryo sac. Now the cell walls are built after the eight nucleate stage and the normal embryo sac, that is a gametophyte of a female organized. So what they're mentioning is that after this mitotic division, they'll be resulting creating into a four nucleate cells, then to a eight nucleate cells. After that, the cell walls are formed. Now, the cell membrane and the remaining two of the eight nuclei encircle six of the remaining two polar nuclei, which are located beneath the egg. Related equipment is located in the main cell. So here you can see that the cell membrane and the remaining two of the eight nuclei encircle six of the remaining two polar nuclei. So that means there are total eight nuclear cells. So here you can count it like one, two, three, four, five, six, and here we have two, that is eight nucleate cells we have. Now, three of six cells are two synergids. One egg cell make up the egg apparatus and are located at the micropylar end. Yeah, sorry for the interruption. So the synergids at the micropylar end has unique thickenings, and the filiform apparatus is the collective name for them. So the filiform apparatus is like finger-like structures present beneath, like at the ovary part, and they are helpful. They are functioning as a connective area where I mean, like the ovule part is connected to the egg part. So the synergids, it aids in the directing the pollen tubes toward the synergids, and three cells, that is, as I told, the filiform apparatus will be directing the pollen tube towards the synergids. Now, as I told, the three cells known as the antipodal cells are located as the callosal end, and a normal angiosperm female, that is gametophyte, matures with seven cells and eight nuclei. Now we are moving to pollination. It is a procedure by which the pollen grains are moved from the anther to the stigma. And pollination can be categorized into following categories. That is, it could be cross pollination, it could be self pollination. As I mentioned earlier, it could be a pollination between two flowers present on the same plant or different plant. Okay, so pollen grains are transferred from the anther to the stigma of the same flower in a process called autogamy. So autogamy necessitates that the stigma and anther be in close proximity. Now, chasmogamous flowers and the cleistogamous flowers do not open at all, and only autogamy occurs. And these are the two type of blooms that plants like viola, oxalis, etc. produce. Now, coming to diatonomy is the movement of pollen from one flower's anther to another stigmas, means another flower stigma inside the same plant. So this is also very important. Now, coming to xenogamy, it is a transfer of pollen grains from one plant's anther to another stigma. Now, genetically diverse pollens are delivered to a plant through pollination. So you have to remember these points. You could expect questions related to this in your NEET exam as well as the CBSE exams. So, Yeah. Now, there are two categories of pollination agents, that is biotic agents as well as abiotic agents. Now, coming to the abiotic factors, it includes the wind and water. Now, coming to wind pollination, anemophily is the term for the pollination carried by the wind. And flowers that are pollinated by the wind and water are not particularly colorful and don't make nectar. Now, coming to flowers that are wind pollinated, frequently only have one ovule in each ovary, and inflorescence is still packed with many flowers. Now, moving to water pollination, that is known as hydrophily. So, wind pollination is anemophily, and water pollination is hydrophily. And this term for pollination by water is restricted roughly to 30 taxa, most of which are monocotyledons, that is monocot plants. Now, in Vacillinaria, the male flowers or the pollen grains are dropped into water surface while the female flowers are carried up by a long stalk. So, this is about the Vallisneria plant. Now, water currents carry these male flowers or pollen grains to the female blooms. The female flowers of sea grasses remain submerged in water, and the long ribbon-like pollen grains are conveyed by the water to the stigma. So, this is about the female flowers of the sea grasses, which remain submerged in the water. And coming to the species that are water pollinated, have a mucilaginous layer and on their pollen grains to prevent soaking. So this means they will not be attaching to the water, or they will not be get soaked to the water. So aquatic plants do not all exhibit hydrophilic. Now, moving to the continuation part of pollination, that is the biotic agents. So, biotic agents include the animals such as bees, butterflies, flies, beetles, bats, some pirates, rodents, etc., which are used to pollinate some blooming plants. And this term is referred to as entomophily, that is a term used for insect pollination, and animal pollinated plants frequently have flowers adapted to a particular animal species. So pollen grains may adhere to the animal's body, that is, for example, adhering to a butterfly or a bee when it comes in touch with the anthers and stigma, which cause the pollination. So what happens is that the animal which is in contact with the flower's anther will carry the pollen grains to another flower and will be falling or transferring this particular pollen grains to the stigma of another flower. So the tallest flower, that is Amorphophallus, demonstrates how some plants offer secure locations as a floral reward for egg laying. Now, moving to double fertilization. So, we couldn't discuss in detail about the synergids, egg cells, antipodals in detail in the previous slides, that is in the megasporogenesis part. So, when the pollen tube transfers its contents, including the two male gametes, into one of the synergids after entering it, so one of the male gametes approach the egg cell and joins its nucleus through the process called syngamy to create the diploid cell known as the zygote. So, there is a fusion happening here. So, the male gametes will be approaching the egg cell and they'll be fusing together, that process called syngamy, and they'll be creating a diploid cell, that is a zygote. And a triploid primary endosperm nucleus, that is also known as PEN, is created when the second male gamete unites with the two polar nuclei present in the central cell. So we know that there are 8 nuclei cells. Out of them, there are we have a central cell as well, which are having two polar nuclei, and the second male gamete will be fusing with these two polar nuclei. And this is known as triple fusion because it requires a joining of three haploid nuclei. So this is why it is known as double fertilization. It happens twice. The fertilization happens twice. That is why it is called as double fertilization. Now, due to the fact that syngamy and triple fusion, two different type of fusion occur in one embryo sac, it is known as the double fusion fertilization. Now, after triple fusion, the central cell becomes the main endosperm cell, which is then developing into the endosperm as the zygote grows into an embryo. And it is a phenomenon specific to flowering plants. So, in this diagram, you could see the development of microspore that is the male gametophyte germinating pollen grain from the microspore mother cell by the process of meiosis as well as mitosis, where they form tetrads as well as immature and mature pollen grains. And here you can also see that megaspore mother cell undergo meiosis as well as mitosis to produce the megaspores, and this megaspores undergo division to produce 8 nuclei cell, and among them one will be acting as the egg, and this egg and sperm will be fusing together to form the zygote, which will be enclosed inside the embryo. And that is the first fusion. Coming to the second fusion, that is the second gamete will be fusing with the central cell, that is a polar nuclei, to form the endosperm. Finally, it will be developing into a mature sporophyte or a plant, we could say. Now, additionally, points of this chapter is the apomixis and polyembryony. Apomixis is a mode of asexual reproduction in plants where the seeds are formed without the process of fertilization. Okay, and in apomictic plants, the ovule develops into a seed without the fusion of male and female gametes. So, this is a very important topic. As I mentioned earlier, one among the topic which we can expect in your exams. So, apomictic plants, where the ovules develop into a seed without the fusion of male and female gametes. Okay, that is, there is no process of fertilization. Now, this phenomenon is a way for plants to produce genetically identical offspring. And advantages of apomixis include the preservation of favorable traits and ability to reproduce in the absence of pollinators. So, now let's move to two terms, that is apospory. In apospory, the embryo develops from a new cellular cell, not the egg cell. The endosperm may or may not be formed. Now coming to diplospory, diplospory involves the development of the embryo directly from unreduced egg cell. It is diploid egg cell. And the endosperm is typically formed in the Diplospora species. Now, next is the polyembryony. So, polyembryony is a phenomenon which a single fertilized egg give rise to multiple embryos. So, this can occur due to division of the zygote into several embryos, each capable of developing into a new plant. And polyembryony is observed in some citrus fruits and pine trees as well. Now, increased chance of survival for at least one of the embryos, that is the advantage of polyembryony. So, genetic diversity among the multiple embryos, which can be advantageous for adapting to different environmental conditions. So, this is a summary of this particular chapter. The gynoecium, which consists of stigma, style, ovary, ovules. The megasporogenesis, where the megaspore mother cell undergo meiosis to produce 4 megaspores, that is the tetrads, and 3 generate 1 remain functional there, and the functional megaspore undergo mitosis thrice, and we have the 8 nucleated 7-celled embryo sac formed, and 3 will be the antipodal cells, 2 will be polar nuclei at the center, and 3 cells from the egg apparatus. It is 1 egg plus 2 synergids. Now, the andrecium is the stamen which consists of filaments and anthers. So they are bilobed, have 4 microsporangia. And by microsporogenesis, the microspore mother cell undergo meiosis. Then it will be forming tetrads. Then they undergo mitosis. They will be forming pollen grains. And they will be having 1 vegetative cell and 2 male gametes. And they undergo pollination where the pollens get germinated. And they then undergo, that is syngamy, that is the fusion of egg and 1 male gamete forms a zygote. And here there is a triple fusion where the 2 polar nuclei fuse with 1 male gamete and it forms the endosperm. Now, moving to the questions. These are the questions of past papers of NEET. And this particular question is from May 2024. Sorry, May 2014, botany, question number 114. And it is from the chapter that is sexual reproduction of flowering plants. So, first question is, we have discussed this topic actually. So, question is, gytonogamy involves what? So, it is about the fertilization process. Fertilization, it is from the fertilization topic. And we learned about the pollination, the pollen grains transferring as well. So the process of geitonogamy actually is the transmission of pollen grains between blooms on the same plant. So that means here the answer will be option A, that is fertilization of a flower by the pollen from another flower of the same plant. So the highlight here is the pollination which is happening in the same flower. Okay, so we had discussed about geitonogamy as well as xenogamy, and then yeah, here we have discussed about chasmogamous flowers as well. So xenogamy is the transfer of pollen grains from one plant to another, like another plant's anther, from the another stigma. Now moving to the next question. Yeah, the second question is from May to 2014 again. It is a botany question, from question number 115. So this is male gametophyte with least number of cell is present in which among the following? So among the options, the correct answer is lilium. So we know that in angiosperms, the male gametophyte is also referred to as the pollen grain is highly reduced. That means it is two or three celled. And here the lilium is an angiosperm plant in which the male gametophyte is three celled. And most reduced gametophyte is compared to the funaria, which is a bryophyte. So that means option B will be incorrect. Okay, now as we proceed from the talophyte to angiosperms, there is a reduction in the gametophytic generation. They became more and more dependent on the sporophyte. So in each of the plant groups that succeeded bryophytes, the gametophyte became less and less prominent. So in angiosperms like lilium, the male gametophyte, that is a pollen grain, is highly reduced and is only a three cell structure. So that means the correct answer is option C, lilium. Now, next question is the pollen tablets are available in the market for what? And the options we have in vitro fertilization, breeding programs, supplementing food, and ex situ conservation. So, actually, these pollen tablets or syrups are for the improvement and maintenance of health. So, they also enhance the performance of sports persons and horses used for race. So the pollen tablets are one of the nature's totally nutritious food that contain almost all nutrients essential for humans. So that means the answer will be option C, supplementing food. Because the pollen grains are so full of nutrients, they are employed as dietary supplements. They are used as pills by the race horses and athletes to improve the performance. Now, moving to the next question. This is also from May 2014. The question is function of filiform apparatus. So, we have already discussed this in the previous slides. So, this is a filiform apparatus. It is a finger-like structures, and it is made up of microfibril core encased in a sheath, and it is similar to the transfer cells used to shift metabolites over short distances. And what is the function of filiform apparatus? Actually, it is the ovules part which facilitates the pollen tube's entrance into the synergids. And it is also in charge of food absorption from the nucleus. So, from the options, we could select option D as the correct answer. It guides the entry of pollen tube. So, the filiform apparatus consists of cellulose, and its function seems to be the separation of chemotactic glucose containing substance, which passes into the micropyle and attracts the pollen tube. So the name synergid is consequently quite appropriate for this. So the answer is option D, guide the entry of pollen tube. Now, moving to the next question, in some members of which of the following pairs of families, the pollen grains retain their viability for months after release? So, we know that in dicot families like Solanaceae, then Rosaceae, Leguminaceae, the pollen grains retain viability for several months. Whereas coming to cereals like the Poaceae, the pollen grains retain viability for around 30 minutes. So that means for months, the options will be having should have Solanceae, Rosaceae, and Leguminosae. So that means here a correct answer will be option A, Rosaceae as well as Leguminosae, because they are having the viability of pollen grains which remains months together after their release. Now, next question is a typical angiosperm embryo sac at its maturity is what? So, we already discussed this topic in the previous slide. So, a typical angiosperm embryo sac consists of seven cells. That is the three antipodal cells, one central cell, total, but we have one, two, three, four, five. So that means the central cell is having two polar nuclei, resulting in the embryo sac being eight nucleated. So the answer is option B, eight nucleate and seven celled. Now, moving to the next question. This is also from the topic related to pollination. And here the question is the term used for transfer of pollen grains from anthers to one plant to stigma of a different plant, which during pollination brings genetically different types of pollen grains to stigma. So from the options, we could deselect option C, gymnogamy, because as we discussed, it is a transfer of pollen grains between two different flowers of the same plant, as we discussed in the previous question. Now, coming to xenogamy, the pollen grains from one plant anthers are transferred to another plant stigma during pollination, resulting in the introduction of genetically distinct pollen grains to the stigma. So that means the correct answer will be option B. Whereas coming to option A, cleistogamy, so it is a process in which the flowers do not open. See, we also discussed this in the class in the previous slides as well. So that means option A is also incorrect. Coming to option D, chasmogamy, it is a process in which the stigma and the anthers are exposed in a flower. So they usually undergo cross pollination, not transfer of pollens from anthers of one plant to a different plant. So option D is also incorrect. The correct answer is option B. Now, coming to the next question, that is from July 2022, question number 135. The question is, which one of the following plants shows vexillary aestivation and diadelphous stamens? So, among the options, we have option A, Pisum sativum, Allium cepa, Solanum nigrum, Colusium autumnale. Now, the features like vexillary estivation and diadelphous stamens are the characteristics of Fabaceae family. Whereas coming to Pisum sativum, that is garden pea, belongs to uh, this particular family. So, option A will be the correct answer. Whereas coming to Allium cepa, it is onion. Then the Solanum nigrum as well as the Colchicum autumnale does not belong to Fabaceae family. They are like belonging to Allium cepa is belonging to Liliaceae, and Solanum nigrum belongs to the family as Solanaceae as well. So Coliseum autumnale is belonging to the family Liliaceae as well. So option B, C, and D are incorrect. The correct answer is Pisum sativum. Now moving to the next main closed, promoting pollens in the same plant. That means in the same flower, they will be like doing the pollination. And it is given that the cleistogamous flowers are invariably autogamous. And second is that the cleistogamy is disadvantageous as there is no chance of cross pollination. Actually, both the statements are true because as we discussed right now, the cleistogamous flowers remain closed and they promote the autogamy. So they lack the open pollination, which is the disadvantages of cleistogamy. So that means both the statements are correct, which makes option D the correct answer. So now we'll move to the next statement. Next question. That is question number 20 of Botany, May 2023, which carries 4 marks. And the question is, large, colorful, fragrant flowers with nectar are seen in which among the following plants? So in the options, we have wind pollinated, insect pollinated, bird pollinated, and bat pollinated. So here the answer will be option B, insect pollinated, because the large, colorful, fragrant flowers will be attracting the insects. So majority of the insect pollinated flowers exhibit the characteristics such as large size, vibrant colors, strong fragrance, and abundant nectar. So insect pollinated flowers often have the specialized structures such as the landing platforms, nectar guides, intricate shapes, which further enhance their attractiveness to the pollinators. So the correct answer is option B. Now, moving to the next question. It is a question from May 2023, Botany. And the question was, in angiosperm, the haploid, diploid, and triploid structures of a fertilized embryo sacs eventually are dash. So in the options, we have synergids, antipodals, polar nuclei. Then here we have the primary endosperm nucleus, the zygote, the primary endosperm, the primary endosperm nucleus as well. So from this, we could look into the synergids first. So synergids are a pair of haploid. That is, synergids are haploid cells present at the micropylar end of the embryo sac. Now moving to zygote, zygotes are diploid. There is 2N, which are the structures which undergo division to form an embryo. And then we have the primary endosperm nucleus, which are they are triploid in nature. So that means option D will be the correct answer. Synergids, which are haploid, zygote, which is diploid, and primary endosperm, which is triploid in nature. And these will be forming a fertilized embryo sac in the angiosperms, respectively. Now, next question is to identify the correct description about the given figure. So, in the figure, you have been given a diagram and which is showing a flower, and this given diagram is of a wind pollinated plant showing compact inflorescence and well exposed stamens. So, the stamens are exposed so to complete the autogamy does not occur. So, the plant part which consists of yeah, sorry. So as we discussed, the diagram is having well exposed stamens, and stamens are exposed so that complete autogamy does not occur. So that means the answer will be option C, that is wind pollinated plant inflorescence showing flowers with well exposed stamens. Now, moving to next question, that is question number 112 from June 2024, Botany. The question is, the pollen grains remain preserved as fossils due to presence of what? So we have discussed about the structural features or structural layers of pollen grains in the previous slides. and it consists of exine layer as well as intine layer. And ex- exine layer is a tough layer, outer layer of pollen grains, which is made up of highly resistant organic material, and they are called as sporopollenin. And this layer is incredibly durable, allowing the pollen grains to remain preserved for millions of years as fossils. So, as the NCRT mentions that sporopollen is one of the most resistant in our organic materials known. That is why which the pollen grains are often found in fossil records. So, which makes option C the correct answer. Now, this question is from the year June 2024. And the question is, which part of the ovule stores reserve food materials? So we had already discussed this topic. The answer is option A, nucellus. So nucellus is the central part of the ovule, and it is rich in reserve food materials which nourish the developing embryo. And the other options we have integuments. As we discussed, integuments forms the protective outer layer of the ovule, and it does not store food material. Coming to placenta, it is the part of the ovary that attaches the ovule, but it does not store food. Coming to option D, that is funicle. As we discussed, it is a stalk that connects the ovule to the ovary wall, and it is not involved in storing food material. So option B, C, and D are incorrect. The correct answer is option A. Now moving to next question. This question is from the 2020 NEET exam. The question number 109. The question is, the plant part which consists of two generations, one within the other. So, in the statements or the options given, we have pollen grains inside the anther, germinated pollen grain with two male gametes, seed inside the fruit, and embryo sac inside the ovule. So you have to find out which combinations will be the correct answer. So here we have the pollen grains inside the anther. That is, the question is about consisting of two generations, one within another. And coming to pollen grains inside the anther will be a correct answer, because the plant part which consists of two generations, one within the other, is the seed. Okay, and morphologically, the ripened ovule is known as the seed. And in other words, seed is mature integumented megasporangium, and the seed's characteristics are of the spermatophytes, gymnosperms, and the angiosperms. So, seed has essentially an embryo, which is the tiny future plant. So, the origin of embryo is from the fertilized egg or zygote. So, that means first statement will be correct, whereas coming to second one, the germinated pollen grain with two male gametes will be incorrect. The third, seed inside the fruit, will be incorrect. Coming to fourth one, the embryo sac inside the ovule will be correct. So the option B is the correct answer, because the plant parts which consist of two generations, one within the other, are the pollen grains inside the anther and the embryo sac inside the ovule. So pollen grain is haploid inside the diploid anther, and here embryo sac is haploid inside the diploid ovule. Now, moving to next question. The body of the ovule is fused within the funicle at what? So, in the options, we have the correct answer, that is option C, hilum. So, the hilum represents the attachment point of the funicle. It is a stalk-like structure to the body of the ovule, and it serves as a vital anatomical feature observed in seeds. So this marks the site where the seed was formerly attached to the ovary wall or connected to the funiculus during seed development. So this is the hilum part, where the point of the funicle to the body of the ovule where it is attached. So that means the hilum represents the point of the funicle to the body of the ovule. So option C is the correct answer. Now, coming to the next question, that is, ovary is half inferior in which among the following plants? So, here the correct answer is option B, plum. So, ovary is half inferior in plum. In botanical terms, the position of the ovary in relation to other floral parts can vary, leading to different classification of flowers. So, in case of plum flowers, the ovary is described as half inferior. A half inferior ovary is one that is embedded or surrounded by the receptacle, and the that is a expanded tip of the flower stem. So this is a half inferior ovary. Now moving to the other flowers given here, there is sunflower. The sunflower ovary is inferior. It is not half inferior. That means it is located below the other floral parts. So option A is incorrect. Option C, brinjal. So brinjal is similar to mustard. That is the as it is with option D, that is the ovary. Here it is superior, not a half inferior. So superior in the sense it is located above the other floral parts. So option C and option D are incorrect answers. The correct answer is option B, plum. So by this, the questions are done. Now we let's get back to the revision part or the summary part of this chapter. So this is a summary of this particular module. As I discussed, the reproductive organs of the plants. It is a male and female one, the gynoecium and the androecium. So as we discussed, the flower serves as a site for sexual reproduction in angiosperms, with the androecium, that is a stamen representing the male reproductive organs, and gynoecium, which is a pistil representing a female reproductive organ. So a typical anther is bilobed. They are dithecous and tetrasporangiate, containing the microsporangia where pollen grains develop. Now, moving to microsporangium, it is surrounded by four layers, that is epidermis, endothelium, middle layers, and tapetum. So, the sporogenous tissue cells within the microsporangium undergo meiosis, and that process is known as microsporogenesis, and it forms tetrads of microspores while mature into pollen grains representing the male gametophytic generation. Now, the pollen grains have two layered wall, the outer exine and the inner intine, with sporopollenin in the exine and the germ spores. And at shedding, the pollen grains may have two or three cells. So the pistil consists of, now this is about the female reproductive organ, consists of stigma, style, and ovary, with ovules present in the ovary. Now, ovules have a funicle, protective integuments, and a micropyle. So, nucellus contains the archisporium and the megaspore mother cell, which undergo meiosis to form the embryo sac, that is a female gametophyte, and the mature embryo sac is 7 celled and 8 nucleate. Now, some nucellar cells surrounding the embryo sac divide and protrude into the sac, developing into embryos. In some species, each ovule may contain multiple embryos, and they are referred to as polyembryony. Now, extracting seeds from an orange and squeezing them reveals the numerous embryos of different sizes and shapes in each seed. So genetic nature of apomictic embryos is considered, and they may termed as clones due to their identical genetic makeup, because they are not having any fertilization. That means no fusion of gametes, so they will be producing clones. Now, the significance of apomixis in hybrid seed production is highlighted. So the hybrid varieties of various crops are cultivated extensively, but the need to produce hybrid seeds and produce new hybrid seeds each year. Characters in hybrid progeny. Consequently, farmers can use these hybrid seeds consistently without the need for annual purchases. So, ongoing research worldwide aims to understand the genetics of apomixis and transfer the apomitic genes into hybrid varieties to enhance the hybrid seed industry. So, this is the summary of the chapter, what we have learned till now. So, for this chapter, you have to focus on the male reproductive organs, the female reproductive organs, the process of megasporogenesis, microsporogenesis, and the fusion, that is the double fertilization, which consists of syngamy and triple fusion. And finally, it will be developing into a embryo and endosperm respectively, which develop into a plant.